Can everyone hear me? No? It's good? Okay, fine. So somebody's joining. Okay, let's get this started. Good morning. Welcome everyone to the one and only email session in Cisco Live. I usually don't do this, but today I want to thank you, everyone. You are the bravest group of attendees that I ever had in Cisco Live, and I've been in Cisco for 18 years, so I've done a few. Last day, the morning after the celebration, so thank you for being here with me. Of course, if you want to have or place questions and answers, you can join the WebEx space if you want to, either myself or some colleagues. We can do some Q&A for you during the session or after the session. And today I'm here to make you a little bit more aware of email security. What should you deploy? Email security is made out of defensive layers. It's an ongoing game. The session itself is not about Cisco products themselves. More towards the end, I talk about a couple of things that are specific to Cisco, or more specific to Cisco, but pretty much everything that I'll talk today, you'll be able to do it with whatever solution you want to do. Of course, also with Cisco's email solution, you'll be able to achieve all of these. A little bit about myself. I'm Sergio Pinto, been in Cisco for almost 18 years. I'm based out of Lisbon, Portugal, so a little bit far away from here. I'm a proud dog owner from Bella, and I have more hobbies than I have time. I love sports, and I love music. I love cooking. Basically, I love everything that takes me away from technology. I spend too many hours in front of the computer, so I try to do things that take me away from it. Before we start the session, someone was already mentioning this. Why do we care about email? Today, I'm here to make you better. To make you better IT admins, email admins, security admins. And I'm pretty sure that today you are here to learn how to make your users safer and your information safer as well. And although technology has evolved and users have been finding new ways to communicate with each other, email is still as used as it's never been before. The email usage has been growing. Companies and their users, including ourselves, if you think about it for a couple of minutes, we leverage email for pretty much everything. And yes, we do have WebEx and Teams and WhatsApp and Slack and everything, but we share a ton of information over email every single day with colleagues, with partners, with vendors, with suppliers, with our families. Pretty much our entire life on the information exchange is done through email. So a question for the audience. What is the #1 attack vector for security? This is a pretty simple one, right? It's email. And yes, we have been getting better on protecting our email. That is new technology, new scanning engines, new capabilities to make our email safer. But attackers also leverage some of that same technology. They are getting better. They are getting more creative. And that makes email very interesting for them. And there are a couple of reasons why email is more leveraged by attackers than anything else. First, because it reaches a person. And trust me, it's much easier to trick a person than it is to find a software bug or a defect. And I like to do a question when I'm presenting about email security. Who is in this room ever clicked on something that they shouldn't? I'll start. I consider myself a pretty knowledgeable guy around email security. I have some experience, but it only took one moment of distraction. And I was sharing that story here. I was working for Cisco, of course. I was waiting for some package to arrive in the office, And I was busy doing a million other things at the same time, like probably you all do. And I got an email. And it was from DHL, if I'm not mistaken. And I click on it. And I had that aha moment where the muscle on my finger is faster than my brain. So when you click on it, but your brain is telling you, no, 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 you shouldn't. And I did. Luckily, it was a phishing simulation. And my award for clicking on it was a 6-hour mandatory training around email security, which was lovely. And I tell this story to show you that even someone like me, I'm not better than any of you guys, of course I'm not, or any of our users, but I have a little bit more experience. I'm a little bit more aware of these kind of things. And even so, I click on it. It only took one moment of distraction. And this is why email security is so good for attackers. It only takes one person to be distracted, one person to not be as knowledgeable as they should be, one person not to be trained as they should be for the attack to become successful. Also, there are many organizations, hopefully not yours, that leverage what I call the best effort protection. They use some mail service. That mail service uses or provides some kind of protection, and they think it is enough to get protected. And I want to ask something else. From this room, who uses Microsoft 365? OK, the large majority. This is a common comment that I get from the customers that I meet or the partners. Oh, but we use Microsoft, so it protects us, right? I don't need anything else. You couldn't be further from the reality. There are plenty of things that Microsoft is really good on detecting, but there are many others that Microsoft is not able to do. Like us, Cisco. There are many things where we are pretty good to detect, and there are others that we are not that good. So complementing solutions is the way to go. It's what provides you the best level of protection. A few years ago, when I started this journey around security, conducting a cyber attack leveraging email required skills. The person needed to be a little bit sharp. He needed to have some coding skills, of course, some cybersecurity skills, some networking skills. Now you can have 12 years old, 0 experience, go online, do a quick search, and someone will offer you a tool to conduct a successful and realistic and creative attack based on email. It's as easy as this. There are free options, paid options. It doesn't take any skills, any effort. So it became more common for companies to get attacks. Those script kiddies up-level their game, and they are now conducting really, really good email-based attacks. Unfortunately, email was created in an unsecure way. It's pretty easy to pretend to be someone else. And I want to make a note here. In this session, most of you have some experience on email security. Others do not. And usually, in the comments, I see, well, it was a little bit too basic for me. And in the same session, I get was a little bit too techy or advanced for me. So I get to put content that addresses pretty much everyone. So some of it's probably too basic for you, but for others, it's the required information to understand why email security is so important. And I was saying that email security is unsecure by nature. Let's do a comparison with a physical mail letter. In the envelope, you need to say exactly who you are. You need to say who is the destination of the letter, and you got a stamp from the post office. I've never sent a letter. I didn't send a letter for the last 20 years, but it should work like this. You get a stamp from the post office. So you need to put real information. I need to say I'm Sergio, because in case the letter doesn't reach the destination, it needs to come back to me. I need to say who's the destination, because the letter needs to reach out, and the post office will stamp it. with the place where I sent a letter from. Now, what the user sees is completely different. In the user, which is the letter, I can fake whatever I want. I can say, hey, I'm Miguel. I'm from the USA. I can change the recipient name. I can change signatures. I can change the information in the body. This is how email works. Anything can be pretended within the content of the message itself. And this makes it interesting for attackers to leverage some level of impersonation. Because email is unsecure, there are challenges that customers face every single day. One of them is around efficacy. So on an email solution, regardless if it's Cisco, Microsoft, or any other competitor, there will always be false negatives and false positives. For those wondering what a false negative is, it means something that the solution should have detected, but it didn't. And a false positive means something that is legit, but the solution categorized it or took action on it as if it was a threat. And all solutions have it. If you have a vendor that tells you, no, my solution is 100% efficient, you can tell them they're liars, and you can call it on me, because there is no such thing. Of course, some customers miss features and miss visibility. How can I understand what happened with this email? Who was the sender? Who was it sent to? Was it a campaign? And those are the most common challenges that a customer sees. Now, what makes an email malicious? It's a common question. It's a tricky answer. It's not an easy one. I call it the game of shades. Of course, there are the obvious malicious emails, the ones that have a malicious URL, or the ones that scramble the 3 letters of UPS on DHL trying to impersonate a brand. Those are the easy ones. And of course, the ones that are legit, don't have malicious URL, don't have a malicious file. But then there is everything in between. The ones that have some URLs or have some files, or are sent from free mail providers like Gmail or Outlook and could be potential malicious. And the false positives and the false negatives always happen here, between the white and the black. And this is where email security solutions and pretty much everything that we are going to talk about tries to address. How to limit this area of the gray shades. When we talk about email security, there are 3 moments in time where we should deploy some level of protection. The first moment in time, in the connection, when the sending server reaches to your organization and say, I have a message for you. That's the first moment where we should deploy some level of analysis and protection. The second one is when it is connected. I have a message for you. And you reply, OK, I'll accept it. Tell me what's the message about. And the third moment where you should deploy some level of protection is when you delivered. So you already accepted the message, you connected it, and you deliver it to a user. Just because it was delivered doesn't mean that you should drop your protection levels, because there are situations, and I'm going to share with you, where you should still analyze those messages during a period of time. Now let's talk a little bit about these 3 moments: connection, connected, and delivered. When there's a connection, again, connection means a sending server tells you, I have a message for you. You should deploy mechanisms that will detect IP reputation, domain reputation, the geo of the sending server, for example. If the domain or the sending server is a recent one or not. Many of the attacks are based on newly created domains, and you would be surprised on how many customers have their solutions set up to accept messages from domains that were created 5 days ago. That's a huge red flag if an email domain was created 5 days ago. You should check for sender maturity as well. Has this sender seen before sending malicious messages or not. And of course, you should apply policies. And within those policies are SPF, DKIM, and DMARC visibility as well. I don't think it goes without saying, if DMARC fails, you should not deliver the message. You should send it to a quarantine, you should stamp a disclaimer, you should prepend something on the subject, alerting the user that something might be suspicious with that message. Nowadays, most of the organizations leverage SPF and DKIM to make sure that they are trustable, but many of the attackers do not. And I still see every single day when customers come to me with, oh, we have a false negative. Why does this fail? And many times it was because the DMARC policy was not properly set up, or because they have a whitelist. Anything gmail.com goes through the gateway all the way through the user without any inspection. So policing and, of course, SPF, DKIM, DMARC alignment is very important at this phase. The second one goes when it's connected. So when it's connected means your solution already said, yes, I trust you as a sender. Tell me what's going on with the message. And here, you do the regular inspection. You look for content, either directly or to a policy. You look for files. You look for URLs. And the files, you should do a bunch of inspections. You should have an antivirus. You should understand if the file is malicious or not. If you don't know the file hash, you should use a sandbox. It's very crucial that any email solution that you have has sandboxing capabilities, because the most malicious attacks leveraging files that were not seen before. And even if they were seen before, sometimes they have some evasion techniques for email security solutions and also sandboxing. You should check for the URLs, of course. URLs follow the same methodology than the files. You shouldn't check only the URL reputation. You should crawl the URL. You should sandbox the URL to understand what the URL will try to do on a user's machine. And of course, you should leverage AI and machine learning. I know this might be surprising for you, but this is not an AI machine learning presentation, like almost every single one today. But AI and machine learning is important. Traditional solutions leverage what I called a reputation-based detection. Reputation of the sender, reputation of the URL, reputation of the file. And yes, it's important, but is it enough? No. I can show you, and I will show you, a couple of examples where there is no URL, there is no file, the sender is trustable because it's using Gmail, and still, it's a malicious file. And you must use something that it's able to understand the intention of the message. The only way for you and within your organization to narrow that gray area is to use AI and machine learning to make sure you understand what the sender is asking, what is the intention of the message. And of course, understand if it should be considered legit or malicious. And then we have the third phase, which is when the message gets delivered. And when the message gets delivered, doesn't necessarily mean that should be trusted. There are plenty of ways to evade some of the initial detection techniques. So I can send you a message, it will get delivered with a URL, and that URL, at the time that crossed the solution, it was legit. It had a good reputation, the sandboxing worked perfectly, but later in time, we get more information about that URL, or it can be a file, for example. I've seen a file that had the detection, an evasion technique that would only show its payload if it was run 10 times. Only after 10 times, you had some kind of counter that was able to run. If you sandbox it, it will run one time. But as we move on time, so let's say the file was delivered today, most likely in a couple of hours, we, Cisco, and other vendors as well, will understand that that file was malicious. And for that, we need to issue a retrospective conviction. Retrospective means the solution should be able, during a period of time, in Cisco, it's 7 days, to, if we get more information about that message, about that sender, about that file, about that URL, the solution should be able to go back in time and remove the message out of the user's inbox. You would be surprised on how many retrospective convictions we produce every day for all our customers. Is within the thousands of retrospective conviction. Thousands of messages that, without this capability, will sit in the user's inbox. Of course, there are other layers. If the user click on it, you have endpoint protection, you have remote browser isolation. There are other layers that can help protect. But within the email security scope, if you don't get retrospection, once it's delivered, you are done. Sorry, you had a question? I just wanted to.
What happens once the email is delivered, and let's say 5 days passes, but by then the email, I don't know, maybe it was forwarded or sent to other customers, how do you retrospectively?
Great question. So the question is, and I'm going to repeat just so everyone can hear, what happens if during that time the email was forwarded or was open? It doesn't matter. We have in Cisco, and any solution should provide this capability. We have information about how the emails flow between users. So if you get an email today that was not convicted, and then you forward it to 5 colleagues, and then those 5 colleagues forward it to someone else, that tracking information is available. So whenever we issue one retrospective conviction, it will take action on all of those messages, regardless of who was the sender or who was the recipient. Because the IOC that led, the IOC is the indicator of compromise that led to that conviction, is common to all those messages. Okay? After delivering these messages, besides retrospective conviction based on IOCs, leveraging some sort of AI and machine learning will help you understand the intention of the messages. And this is most important for internal messages. Most of the organizations, I can try to understand. How many of you have an email security solution that provides the same level of protection to internal emails as for incoming emails? Just want to show there is no right or wrong answer, okay? And what you are showing me is what I see with customers as well. They are mostly concerned about inbound and outbound traffic, or north-south traffic, and not internal emails. And also, you would be surprised, and I'm always surprised when I deploy a new solution to a customer, on how many internal users are compromised. It shouldn't matter if the email comes from the outside or if it's internal. What it matters is if it's a threat, if it's malicious, if it's a scam, it should be detected. And AI and machine learning poses a big weapon in our toolbox to be able to make our internal users safe. So we are able to understand the intention of the mail. If a user gets compromised, their devices, their laptop, their passwords, it doesn't matter. The solution should be able to apply the same level of protection. And of course, be able to remediate. Sometimes, especially for false positives, again, for false negatives, retrospection works automatically. I just explained you. We get more information, we issue retrospection, and action can be taken automatically. For false positives, it's slightly different. Usually they are done manually. So it means that an admin will go to the interface and will say, this is not malicious. This was incorrect conviction. So being able to take that remediation without having to go to multiple tools to do it, it's something that every single customer should leverage. Some of these false positives are important messages, are business messages, and you don't want to spend 1 hour searching for them on your mail server, running PowerShell commands. You want something easy where you can go and say, well, you got this wrong, this is legit. And when you click on it, regardless if it's one message or 1,000, it will take the message to its correct place, which is the user's inbox. Now let's talk about trust. We talked a little bit about delivery, and now we should be talking a little bit about trusting the senders or not. And we addressed this a little bit before, which is DMARC compliance. I already said SMTP was not created to be safe. Email was not created that way. And during plenty of time, attackers leverage the lack of capability to identify if the sender should be sending emails on behalf of that domain or not. But nowadays, there is no reason whatsoever for any organization not to check on DMARC. And DMARC means being able to understand if the sender is secure or not. Is this sender someone that can send emails on behalf of that domain? If you get an email from Cisco.com, you must be sure that whoever is sending that email, regardless if it's a Cisco server or a third-party application or a partner, you should make sure that that server is authorized to send that messages. That is how we trust them. You can also get visibility. Who is sending emails on your behalf? And some of you may think, oh no, I know, come on. I know every single application is sending emails on behalf of my domain. I would say 99% of the organizations have some sort of shadow IT. You know, the marketing guys, the HR that buy some application to a friend that is going to revolutionize their business, and they don't tell anyone. They just go there, put their credentials, and that's it. So being able to leverage DMARC, you are able to understand who is using your brand, who is using your domain to send emails as well. DMARC compliance can be basically done in two ways. One, by looking at SPF. The SPF means if the sending server is allowed to send messages from your domain. The other one, because identifying all the sending servers might be an impossible task, you can use DKIM. And DKIM is basically a signature that you give that will make that message signed by your organization. I'm going to give you an example why SPF doesn't work for all solutions. Let's say that Cisco.com decides to use Salesforce. I think we do use Salesforce to send messages to customers and partners. The IP addresses of the Salesforce servers change every day, every week, because they also use SaaS solution. So it's hard for me to go on my DNS record and put all the IPs from Salesforce. But it's easy for me to give a signature to Salesforce and say, on every message that you sent, use this signature. And what should happen is when the receiving server gets the message, it will check if that signature is trusted or not by querying our DNS records. So these are the two ways how we check DMARC. Of course, there are some variants to this. This is the simplistic version of SPF and DKIM. Every time you send an email, and that mail, well, I'm going to say that every time you receive an email and you check for SPF and DMARC, you are going to send a report to the server, to the domain saying, well, I got this email. It was legit or it was not trusted. Those reports are at the thousands or millions every day. So you cannot do it manually. You can get those emails, but you'll get some XML files, and they are not to be processed by a human person. you should leverage something, a tool that is able to consume all that information and gives you back a report telling you who is using your domain, why, when, by who. And for that, we have partners. One of them is in the room, Redshift, that provides you that information. It also provides some additional services like brand trust. And brand trust means not only will tell you who is using your domain, but it will also tell you if there are any lookalike domains being used in the wild that you don't know of. So it will give you a little bit more of visibility. Moving on to the next layer, and we will be talking about layers of defense. Let's talk about AI. So I've mentioned that traditionally, we would stop emails based on reputation. Does it have a malicious file, a malicious URL? But there are many that don't have anything. And this is a good example. Hey, I just moved to a new bank account. Can you please update my payroll? There is no file. There is no URL to click, and still, it's a scam. I can assure you that the ones that put Microsoft's hand in the air, if you are only using Microsoft, it won't get stopped. Okay? I could give you another example. I could go to my Gmail account and send you an email saying, hey, I'm Sergio. I know exactly what you have been doing in San Diego while you were not working, so I have some proofs of it, and unless you want your employer, your family to get to know about those, send me 1 Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin might be too much, but send me 1 Bitcoin to my crypto wallet. Let's break this down a little bit. I'm sending from Gmail, SPF, DMARC, DKIM, all good. I'm telling you I'm Sergio, so I'm not pretending to be anyone else. So no impersonation here. No URLs, no files, no buttons to click, but still, it's a scam. And for that, you need AI. I cannot state this enough in any email security presentation that I do. You need AI to keep your email environment, your users, and your information safe. No question about it.
So has Cisco done a lot with the AI and zero clicks? Like go back a couple years to Pegasus, right? Like,
yeah.
You can have a malicious email in your box that you don't know about. It's called the zero click attack. You don't have any user interaction, but a user would never know that they've been compromised. Is AI moving that forward?
Not that I've seen. So AI is mostly used for the detection. I never seen, until today, an email that is malicious without end-user interaction. Or at least one that is able to breach the defenses that we have today. Most of the emails or the attacks that I see do require some end-user interaction. Yes, there is some rendering that can be done on the Outlook, but those are pretty much blocked nowadays. So I don't see in the wild any email-based attacks that don't require some level of user interaction.
Yeah, but they're getting more and more. When you look, like Pegasus started it all.
Yeah. How does AI work here? So basically, it looks for signals. And the signals can be something as simple as a malicious URL, of course, but it can be a sense of urgency. You need to do this by the end of the day. Or it can be a call to action. Click here, do this. And there are plenty of signals that can be used. In Cisco, we use around, if I'm not mistaken, 200 signals that goes from the obvious ones to the most creative ones. And when we create those signals, we run them to a machine learning classifier to understand if the email should be malicious or not. Again, it just doesn't take just one signal to convict a message. And I'm going to give you an example. Rare sender communication. And it means that I've never communicated with you before. If I go to Cisco, except for ISAM that have communicated with me before, if I send any of you one email today, the solution would flag, Sergio never communicated with you before. And it's a suspicious signal. But because of that, the solution should not convict the message. So it's a combination of signals, some with highest severity, others with a little bit lower severity, that are combined to convict the message. And why is this so important on email security? Because it's not a policy. It's not static. Some of you were saying, I have a policy to block something. But that policy requires an update. If the attack changes, the policy needs to change as well, or else it's not effective anymore, or it's not as effective as it used to be. AI and machine learning allows you to evolve if the attacker in this simple example that I was giving does not say, I'm Sergio, says, I'm Mary, changes the words slightly, move the language from English to something else, it doesn't matter. We will be able to detect the same level of threat, and we will be able to produce the same level of conviction. And this is why AI is so, so, so important in email security. Context and relationship. Content versus context. We need to understand the intention of the message. The content itself, as I explained multiple times, and I gave some examples, it's not enough to convict a message or to understand if it should be convicted or not. There are plenty of examples where there is a very thin line about, is this a scam or it's not a scam? Something like, hey, John, we have met in Cisco Live. Can you send me your phone number so we can have a chat? These are the ones that are at the blur line. Is this a scam? Is this someone trying to do the initial contact and build a relationship so that can be trusted and then send the attack? So we need a little bit more to understand if the emails are malicious or not. And for that, we leverage context. And context means we try to understand exactly who communicates with you in the organization. A relationship map should be built between all the users so that we understand exactly who communicates with who, which frequency, and why is this so important. Only 8% of the messages, of the emails in a typical organization come from new senders. Only 8%. So it means that all the emails that we sent, 92% of them are sent to people that we already somehow exchange information with. Now, if we narrow this to threat emails, 90% of them, 90, comes from never seen before senders. And that's a really good signal for us to use in email security. One of the first signals that we look for in machine learning and AI is, have we seen this sender before? Yes or no? And this means we need to build this relationship mapping that is different for every single customer. And this is one of the reasons why cloud solutions are mandatory for email security, because this requires performance and scalability that the on-prem solutions, the legacy solutions, cannot provide. Now, let's play a game together. Let's try and talk about emails that leverage more than content. And I have a reply, and I would like to do a small poll in the room. How many of you think, one of them is fake, by the way. I need to be fair with the game rules. One of them is fake. I would like for you to tell me how many of you think it's the one from the left. Show me your hands. No one thinks it's the left one. Okay. How many of you think it's the one on the right? Okay, some hands in the air. You are guessing. That's it. Because as humans, you cannot find out which one is a fake reply. Even me, I don't remember which one was it. It was this one. This was done in my lab. As you can see, it's my name there. I sent it from my Gmail account. And one of them is fake. This one is fake. There is no reply whatsoever. I built that to pretend to be a reply. And by the way, for all of you that raise your hand on the Microsoft one, this is my Microsoft lab, not detected by Microsoft. Okay? This one is from 2024, maybe 1 year ago, but I tested these frequently, and it's still not detected. Why? Because content isn't enough to understand if the message is malicious. There is more to be seen. We look at the headers to understand if the message is legit or not. We look at the relationship mapping. Oh, it's a reply. This is a pretty obvious explanation for you. If it's a reply, it means that that sender had to communicate at least once before. And if it didn't, if the relationship mapping is empty, that's a strong signal. How can it be a reply if I've never seen that sender before? We also look at the intention of the message, of course, what is being asked. And by combining these signals, we are able to understand if the message is legit or not. These are the kind of tools that you should use to make sure that your users and your information is as safe as possible. For files, I mentioned it briefly. There are two types of files that we should check on email. It's either new files or unknown files. For new files, we can leverage reputation-based services like antivirus, third-party feeds around file hashes to compare, and unknown files. For unknown files, you must run the file. Again, this is one of the most common things that I see in customers not doing. Oh, my AV didn't know if the file was malicious or not, so we let it go just in case it's a legit email. No. If it's unknown, if your AV or whatever you are using to check the file hash doesn't give you a legit disposition, a legit verdict, sandbox it, quarantine it, do some manual inspection on it. Don't let it go through the user. The same goes for retrospection. You should be able to do retrospection on files. I've mentioned in the beginning, there are many files that leverage some evasion techniques for AVs and for sandboxing. We issue thousands of retrospections every single day for our email customers. Emails that would sit on the user's inbox. So if you are not using it today with Cisco or anyone else, make sure you do. Again, and this session is all about best practices and which layers you should adopt to make your solution safer. You would be surprised by the amount of Cisco customers that have this feature and don't have it enabled. They don't leverage it just because they don't know or just because they don't care. But it should. It should be mandatory for you, or it is part of the best practices to have this feature enabled. Same for malicious URLs. The URLs can be in one of 4 places. It can be in the message body. It can be in files, even in whatever. It can be in QR codes. And it can be on SVG files. This is the most common one. I usually say that in email security, there are trends. In the last 2 years, the trend has been QR codes. Everyone was worried about QR codes. There were plenty of attacks based on QR codes. Now is SVG files. Why? Because many of the security solutions still don't have some capabilities to open the SVG files and understand if the message, if the URL inside is malicious or not. So whatever you are using for email security, make sure that you are capable of understanding, opening, and convicting if there is a malicious URL inside an SVG file. Of course, attackers are creative, and they are able to sneak in URLs inside messages. And something that I always explain is what the email security solution sees and what the user sees on their laptop is completely different. The user sees a rendered information, an HTML rendered information on their laptop. And because it was rendered, there are ways to hide it. So attackers can change the font size, they can change the color to blend in the background and make it as sneaky as possible. I've seen messages where the user thinks it's clicking on something, but it's not. It was a hidden letter right on the side of the legit one with a blended background color that unless you are trained to look at it, it will be missed. So again, one of the layers that we should use for email security is to have the capability to inspect inside the HTML of those messages and understand if there is any HTML smuggling or any techniques to try to hide malicious content inside the message. Now let's talk about pretending to be someone else and talk about user and brand impersonation. This is one of the most common ways that attackers leverage to get trust from the user. Again, going back to my life lesson of clicking on something that I shouldn't, my alert levels were a little bit down because I was distracted, of course, but also because on the milliseconds that I look at the email, there was a known brand there. It was DHL. Oh, it's DHL. It should be legit, right? And attackers leverage those brands. This is just a sample of them. Some of them change between the US and EMEA. For example, in the EMEA, we don't have Chase or Geek Squad as often as we can see here in the US, but pretty much all the others are there. Adobe, PayPal, Instagram, of course, the Facebooks, the Microsofts. Attackers do leverage those impersonations to be able to gain some trust. So your solution should be able to detect those impersonations. And how does it should be done? First, you should be able to understand what are the most common impersonated brands. And there is one list, the Alexa 1000, that gives you the list. It's the most, I would say, known list of well-known brands. Then you should search for information that is able to identify which brand is being impersonated. And that can be the content of the message, it can be a logo, it can be a signature. And of course, it should also know exactly what a legit email from that brand looks like. And if you know how a legit email is, if you know which domains that brand uses, you are able to compare what you just found on that message with what you know is legit. If we see a message from Microsoft, and we do see those every day, that are being sent from a domain that it's not the typical Microsoft domain, that becomes suspicious. It will generate a signal. If we see a message coming from Microsoft that says, hey, welcome, sergio.pinto@cisco.com, that becomes suspicious because Microsoft doesn't greet the users by email address. It will say, hello, Sergio Pinto. If the signature is slightly different on the email from the ones that we know that are legit, it will be generating a signal. And all those signals will be used to convict a message. Lookalike domains is also a common technique that attackers leverage. And whatever you are using for email security must be able to look at lookalike domains. The ones that are pretty similar to the original domain, and that will make the user don't pay attention to it. It should be done in two ways, lookalike domain detection. One, lookalike domain protection for well-known brands, but also lookalike protection for your own brand, for your own domain. Because many times attackers will try to impersonate not only well-known brands, but your own brand. They will pretend to be someone within your company or within one of your partners that you work with and try to lure you into clicking on something or providing some information that you shouldn't be providing. And for those, my recommendation is to create a list and a policy within your tool, within your solution. There are plenty of tools where you can create these permutations. So it will generate a list of lookalike domains for your organization, and you can create a policy that will detect those, and you can take whatever action you decide to do. You can drop, you can quarantine, you can, again, stamp the message with a disclaimer or prepend the subject, whatever works for you. I've started this presentation by telling you that email security is a little bit a game of shades. So yes, there are many messages where it's easy to identify if they are legit or malicious, the ones that are black or that are white. But in the middle, it's a little bit more difficult. And for that, we need to be combining signals. And I'm going to give you an example on how with Cisco we do this. So email comes in. When email comes in, we open up the email and extract content. When I mean extract content, does it have files? Does it have URLs? What is the HTML code? What is the subject, the sender, the domain? So we extract all that information. And we pass it to detection engines. And those detection engines, in our solution, can be AI and machine learning engines, can be antivirus, file reputation like AMP services, can be sandboxing. All of those engines will look at the details that were extracted from the content extraction piece. We also share that information with Talos. I'm pretty sure all of you know Talos, and Talos provides the reputation-based services for our email security solution. They will tell us if the IP should be trusted or not. They will tell us if the URL reputation is good or not. They will be able to tell us if the brand that is being impersonated is legit or not. And based on this, what happens in many solutions is it only takes one of these engines, regardless of which, to produce a conviction, to convict the message. And what we have learned by using, again, AI and machine learning is that sometimes we need a little bit more. Through AI, we are able to understand the intention of the message. And what we do, we started to combine signals. For example, and this is just an example, a message comes in and goes to Talos, and Talos says, well, no, I'm good. So it's legit, for example. And then goes to the AI machine, and the AI machine says, I think it might be suspicious. And that email would go through. It was not enough. So Talos didn't give it enough to get convicted, and the AI machine, the AI engine, also didn't give enough to convict the message. So what we started to do to reduce the false negatives and the false positives was combining signals. A little bit from this one, a little bit from the other one. We know if the combination between web reputation and, for example, relationship mapping produces good convictions. So by being able to learn from the mail flow and by combining signals from different engines, we were able to reduce the number of false positives and false negatives up to 35%, just by combining signals. The majority of the solutions, what they use is a pretty straightforward conviction engine. One of the engines convicts, let's convict the message. But by combining, it becomes much more efficient than it used to be. Because we are talking about layers and how to defend and how to make your solution better, it doesn't end in the email security solution. You should be combining information with other applications as well. Which ones? It depends. The most common ones are the source, or the SIEMs. You should be sharing information with other applications that also use information from other sources to help you understand if that sender is malicious, if that URL is malicious, if that message is malicious. Many times you can get information from other applications like a firewall, for example, or another vendor, let's say a customer that has a full Cisco solution, but they are using firewalls from Check Point. By combining information into a SIEM, you are able to do better detections, to be able to do better incident investigations, and to take automatic action into messages. Just because I'm going to use Microsoft Sentinel. You can set up Microsoft Sentinel for a workflow that if you see something that should be considered malicious, go to the email security solution and quarantine those messages. It doesn't take human action. It doesn't take time for you to do. It can be done automatically, reducing the risk surface within your organization. Now, last defense, and I was talking a little bit about end-user training a while ago, at least with the folks here at the beginning of, at the front rows. There was a customer this week that was saying that he's not able to train their users. If they do any phishing simulations that are a little bit more difficult than the basic, they will fail. But end-user training is mandatory. If we are not able to detect a message, and if it's a false negative for whatever email solution you are using, your end user should be trained to be able to detect that threat. Phishing and ransomware are on the rise. Every year there are more attacks on phishing, more attacks on ransomware, biggest financial impacts on every single customer. And for that, the users play a big part because they were phished or they got some ransomware attack because the user clicked on something that they shouldn't. Of course, because whatever solution they used for email didn't perform as expected, but the user was not trained to detect that as well. And all organizations face this challenge. How can I train the users better? If you are not training your users for some reason, you must. I know this is not a technical layer of defense like all the others that I mentioned, but it's a crucial layer that you should implement. And it should be an ongoing task. I've done a session 2 years ago around end-user training on how can you build an ongoing model for end-user training and phishing simulation. And it shouldn't be done in a one-shot. Oh, I'm going to send some kind of training to my users, run a phishing simulation, and then 1 year from now, I'll come back and I'll do it again. That's not productive. It should be ongoing, using learnings, micro-learnings, nano-learnings, phishing simulation, gamification, etc., to make it as successful as possible. Coming through the end of it, and I want to make sure that we understand a little bit of what we discussed today. Secure email, it's an ongoing game. Okay? It's made out of layers. There isn't a single layer that it's better than the others. They complement each other. Even within the same security email solution, my advice to you is to use more than one solution. And I've told you, Microsoft is pretty good on detecting a couple of things. They are not as good on others, the same as within Cisco or any other vendor. But by combining these two solutions, you are making sure that you are using the best of both worlds. Today, the session was about trying to explain you which layers of defense you should consider as mandatory. If you are not enabling what I've spoken today during this little bit higher than 60 minutes, you should go back and try to understand if all those layers are deployed in your organization. Of course, you should leverage reputation, you should leverage AV, you should leverage sandboxing for files and URLs. But to me, the most important two are you must leverage something that is using AI and machine learning. You are not protected today if you are using a traditional email gateway that is based on reputation services only. Something more is needed. If you are not using it, you will get phished. You will get breached. There is no question about it. The question is when. You may create policies to be able to defend yourself, but there will be one time that your policy is not effective. So make sure that you leverage, again, AI and machine learning to detect those threats. As a summary, and a call to action, of course, after this, there are 3 moments in time that you should put your layer of defense: before the connection, when you accept the connection, and when you deliver the message to your users. Those are the 3 moments where you should be. Reputation-based services are a nice to have, but not enough today. I've shown you multiple examples of messages that didn't have a malicious URL or a malicious file. You must have something that understands the intention of the message. Only by understanding what is being asked from the user, you can perform some kind of verdict into that message. I've mentioned AI and machine learning, and of course, you should share email information with other applications and consume information from those other applications to make sure that you are more efficient and you are more aware about those threats. As a call to action, there's a QR code on the screen. This takes you to Cisco Email Security Solutions. Pretty much everything that everything that I shared today and more, it's available on the Secure Email Threat Defense solution. It's an AI machine learning solution that will allow you to complement your Microsoft environment as well, providing every one of those layers that I mentioned before. Very quick to set up, 5 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating, it's truly 5 minutes. It's 1 click in Microsoft, 1 click in the Cisco Email Threat Defense. You don't need to take any action on the messages. You can use it as visibility, so you can run it within your organization, or for those that are partners, you can run it within our customers, and you can see what is being missed by Microsoft. If all goes well, you'll be able to see the value of ETD. If you don't, you will waste 5 minutes of your time setting up email threat defense. To finish, those are the slides that you have been seen in other presentations. I want to ask you to please fill in the surveys. The surveys are very important to us, Cisco, and to me as a speaker as well. I know it's the last day. You have attended a ton of sessions, and we have filled in a ton of surveys. I'm asking you these additional efforts of filling the survey for this one as well. The surveys not only count for me as a speaker, but for you as well, as you can enter a context to get some prices as well. This one doesn't make much sense now because visit the Cisco showcase. I think it's getting closed in a couple of minutes or something like that. But you can check and see some of the sessions that were related with security after this event. You can go to the Cisco Live, the on-demand library. You can check not only sessions that were done in this Cisco Live, but the ones before. I have time for Q&A because I ended a little bit early to give you some time for lunch. But if there aren't any questions, thank you so much for being here with me. And I enjoy you. Safe travels back home. Thank you.